Let this sink in for a moment. The lack of financial education cost Americans $450 billion in 2021. 78% of American homeowners are living paycheck to paycheck. And right now, most American homeowners are equity rich and cash poor. That's another word for broke. The media isn't helping you, schools aren't helping you, and the government for sure isn't going to save you. As a top 1% mortgage professional and seasoned investor, I cannot sit around and watch these life-changing skills that I've learned outside of traditional schooling be unused, untaught, and thrown in the trash can. So until these statistics change, I'll be here every single week, preaching and teaching personal and professional finance, information that you can use in your life, however that looks, whether you are 16 or 60. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Happy Homeowner Podcast. I created this podcast about 4 years ago for primarily my clients. The name Happy Homeowner. What does it mean to be a happy homeowner? Well, Janet knows exactly what that means. I know exactly what it means. So I try to bring you real estate professionals, other expert finance professionals, people that we deal with in our career every single day that will add value to your journey as a homeowner. Now, the other audience that I have are people that want to be homeowners. And so people that are looking in different communities, people that are not from here. So today I have an awesome episode. So we're going back to my roots. I was born and raised in Snohomish, Washington, and Janet loves Snohomish. She sells a lot of real estate in the Snohomish neighborhoods. Today we're going to really talk about two areas, but one specifically, which is Clearview. And then we're going to talk about, of course, why people tend to move to Snohomish is the downtown living. So Janet, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, this is going to be fun. This is going to be quick. It's going to be valuable. We try to keep things moving along because you can go on rants and get caught in the weeds with real estate, and it can get boring really fast. But today is going to be power packed. So I always start off with, how'd you get into real estate? So how did you decide that, hey, I want to sell real estate for a living?
Oh gosh, well, if I can be a little vulnerable at the beginning, 2008 had hit. We were all out in high-end real estate as investors. By 2014, 15, 16, we were still clawing our way out. And I was in full-time ministry, actually.
Okay.
And so and my husband and I had talked, we're like, we really need to have something that has more money coming in. So I decided to get into real estate to support my ministry habit, which ended up being 2 full-time jobs. Okay. And so I now only volunteer at church instead of run the show in the family area. So that's how it was literally because we needed more money.
You needed more money.
And I needed a fast way to do that.
But it sounded like you were in 2008 and prior to that investing.
Yes.
Okay. So
we've been investors since 1980. Wow. 86.
Yeah.
We've been investing in property.
Yeah. And I see you talk a lot about that on social media and with your clients, about kind
investing.
of your journey as an investor, what you've learned, how you've battled different economies as an investor. So that we'll save that for another valuable podcast. But I always try to explain to my clients, your real estate agent's story is so big. Like some real estate agents have a background in building, some like Janet investing, some in finance, some in contracting. So the real estate agent that you choose to hire is really important. Someone with experience is even more valuable, like Janet.
Absolutely.
So you got in because you kind of knew real estate. You're in real estate as an investor, and then, got into the sales aspect of it. So fast forward, you get into real estate. Now you've got a great business. You are at a really great company, EXP, and you sell a lot of homes. You told me a story leading up to today's podcast about a client that you recently helped in Clearview.
Yes,
yeah.
Yep.
So you want to talk about that real quick, and we can jump into the weeds on stats and all of that good stuff.
Okay. Well, yeah. So they live in Clearview, which is a really lovely portion. Locals might call it Maltby, but it's a really lovely kind of south Snohomish area. You've got the lovely Snohomish downtown, plus you've got Woodinville right there, so it's a really neat little nestled spot. So I love it. The median price there is about between 1.1 and 1.6. We put the property on the market And pricing is super important in sales right now, in real estate sales. We put the property on the market for 1.1. We ended up with 3 multiple offers. We took the offer for 1.52, so we got about almost 5% over our list price. Yeah.
In a market where people are getting less than list price typically,
That's right.
yes?
Right now, the average sale to list to sale price is 97.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 3% under sales price is kind of average what sellers are getting. You got about 5% over.
Yeah.
So your strategy, and this is one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about this today, your agent and the strategy with your agent matters. If you price, and here's the thing, if you're listening to this and you're a seller, listen to your real estate agent. They know the market. They know data. The good ones do. And so Janice's clients listened to her. They priced it a little bit lower, a little bit more attractive. And some sellers would be like, yeah, but what if we only get that? Trust your agent.
Well, the market speaks, and people, the buyers who are kind of sitting on the sidelines right now are waiting for something to be attractive. And so when you price it, so it takes the eyes off the competition and all on you, then you get a lot of foot traffic, and this is what happens. And if you, in this market right now, if you're not off market or under contract within 7 days, your days on market are going to skyrocket to over 40.
That's big. So I want you to say that again. And I want you, as you're listening, as a buyer, this is kind of great to have in your back pocket because you may be able to get a deal. As a seller, you don't want to find yourself in that position. So say that again, the ideal, so strategically speaking and how you educate your sellers is what again?
Well, so pricing is very, very critical. It's one of the ways you attract. You attract with ad copy, photos, and pricing. That's how you attract the buyers. So we like to price it, I wouldn't say aggressively. I would say really, really fairly and nudge it down just a hair so that we attract all of the buyers looking at all the other property and the competition. So that way, when we do that, we can create that competitive environment and drive the price up.
In the first 7 days.
In the first 7 days. Because if you don't go under contract, like I said, in the first 7 days, the average days on market skyrocket to 40, and then you're talking about 97.5% of your list price.
There you go. And you got a lot of real estate agents go, hey, this home's been on the market. You could actually try to lowball, maybe get a deal on this one.
100%.
So your strategy is to get the fish to bite within the first week.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
And when they do that, there's a sense of urgency in that first week. Once that first week passes, all urgency is lost.
Okay. Love that. Okay, so we got into some data here, which is great, which will transition into, we're going to talk a lot right now about statistics and data specific to Clearview. But before we do that, there's sellers and buyers both have a hard time understanding what a seller's market is, what a buyer's market is. You might see on the news or see on websites that, oh, it's a seller's market or it's still a buyer's market, whatever. So let's define, are we in a seller's market right now or a buyer's market, specifically in Snohomish, right? Clearview.
Yeah. So in Snohomish and Clearview, right now the monthly inventory is sitting at 2.6 months. And what that means for people who might not understand when they talk about inventory in months, that means if no other listings came on the market, that all the listings that are currently on the market would be absorbed and purchased. Okay. So right now we're at 2.6% or 2.6 months. The overall MLS is at 4.4. So the kind of Northwest Washington is at 4.4. So we have almost half of the inventory, which leads to a seller's market. Okay. However, buyers are sitting on the sidelines. So while we on paper have a seller's market, it's behaving like a buyer's market right now.
There you go.
Which is why I like to create that competitive environment and draw the buyers in.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because you can't, the traditional, we're in a buyer's market, or the traditional, we're in a seller's market based off of data, days on market, sales price to list price. You can look at that, but you can't hang your hat on that right now because of all those buyers on the sideline.
It reminds me of pricing. When it used to be price per square foot was the data point. Yeah. Now it is a data point. It's much like this. You have to look at the whole picture to really know what's happening. Right.
Okay. That's really, really good. Okay. So buyer's market, seller's market, it's a gray area right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, on paper it's a seller's market.
Okay.
But I will say it feels with proper pricing, like what we did in Clearview, with proper pricing, you can create a seller's market.
Yeah, there you go. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Let's talk about that changing. So what would cause that to flop? I know there's a couple of factors right now. Obviously, everyone's talking about the interest rate side of it. We've seen high interest rates for 3 years, all the way up into the 8s, back down into the 6s. We're kind of in the upper 6s right now. This is being recorded in July, end of July 2025. So what could cause or will cause this market to flip back?
To flip toward
buyers. Toward a buyer or a seller's market, yeah.
Well, I mean, we were talking earlier. I think that there's a lot of things going on right now. Homeowners have great interest rates, so they're less motivated to put their house on the market. And actually, nationally, we're up 31% in inventory, but you have to remember there was such a shortage of inventory for so many years. That's not that number. While it sounds like a lot, it's getting more balanced. Yeah. A balanced market, they say, is between 4 and 6 months now. But honestly, we're seeing in Snohomish in the Clearview area at 2.6 months of inventory, still kind of acting like a buyer's market. And I think it's because sellers don't have to move. They have 82% of all homeowners in the U.S. have 30% equity in their home. So there's just so many things at play. I don't know if the interest rates dropped, then buyers would come out, but then prices would shoot up. There would be competition. We'd then get another shortage of inventory. And
sellers are calling the shots again. Yeah.
So I don't have the magic answer to that because there's so much at play right now, and those low interest rates that caused the market to do what it did for those few years in the 20s and the 20 through 22 ish early 22. We now feel the unintended consequences of that.
Oh yeah. So July 2025, we're seeing reports from not only the government, the presidency, but also the head of Fannie Mae came out 2 weeks ago and tweeted or put out on X that the Fed chairman should be fired, that he's single-handedly crashing the housing market. Now, we're a little bit more blessed up here in the Pacific Northwest, but there's other areas of the country where, there have a lot of inventory. People are not buying because of high interest rates, and then sellers not selling because they have that great interest. They have that great interest rate, right? And so we've seen reports that in the next 3 to 6 to 12 months there could be substantial Fed rate drops. And so what that will do indirectly, that'll cause mortgage rates to fall, which, like you said, will bring buyer demand back. I think the National Association of Realtors a few months ago said for every 1% drop in rates, 4 million new home buyers actually qualify for a mortgage. And so that will create buyer activity. What we need is rates to drop low enough so sellers can be like, okay, I'm fine with selling my house now and getting rid of a 3% and substitute or now taking on a 5% 30-year fixed rate, for example. Yeah. So these are things that you want to pay close attention to. The other thing which impacted the stock market recently is a lot of the geopolitical concerns, the trade negotiations and stuff like that. I'm heavily invested in the stock market. I never was afraid of that. I watched it dip and I knew from my financial planner, my mentor, that it was going to bounce right back, and it did, and it has. And so pay attention to things like that. Those fears you can use for your advantage, especially if you're a buyer right now. The other thing I'll say, and I want your opinion on this, because I'm in finance, so I work with a lot of buyers, obviously, right? Borrowers. I tell my clients once they're approved that, hey, if you find a home that you like, go at it and aggressively negotiate, because I will tell you the seller right now in today's market wants to sell more than you want to buy. They're not just flirting. No one's really flirting with the market, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
Mm-hmm. So buyers out there, sellers aren't messing around right now. It's what are the main, like death, divorce, relocation, destitute, like losing money, stuff like can't afford it, right? And so buyers right now is an opportunity. This is what I'm preaching, to potentially negotiate and get a good deal on a home. You can always go and rework your mortgage down the road when rates drop.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, like Janet just said, when rates do drop and sellers start to enter the market, they're going to be serious, but they're going to be people that are like, hey, afford to take my time. I've waited the last 3 years to sell. So what's another 6 months? So I think there is a real good opportunity right now based off of those factors.
Yeah, I always say marry the house, date the mortgage.
Yeah.
You get to change the mortgage. If the rates go down, if the rates go up, you were a genius to buy today.
Yeah.
If the rates go down, you can refinance.
That's it. That's huge. Yep. Okay, so let's talk specific in Clearview about kind of like year over year to give you some perspective. So we're going to talk about kind of like 3 metrics here, but days on market. So year over year, and then also what does days on market mean to you as a real estate agent and then to a buyer or a seller?
Well, okay, so in Clearview specifically, days on market year over year it's almost identical. It was within a couple of days in the 29-day period.
Okay.
Days on market are critical to me, whether I'm dealing with a seller or a buyer. And here's why. For the seller, days on market is acid. For a buyer, it's music to our ears because we're going to negotiate a deal.
Yeah.
So depending on which side of the fence you're on, days on market matters. It has a huge impact on the sale of a home. And like we're averaging 97.5 of the list price. That's 97.5. There's 2 things happening there.
Okay.
People are probably pricing from the past, thinking their house is worth what it would have been when they didn't sell.
Right. Yeah.
Or they're overpriced. So they're overpriced and, what was my other thing? Or days on market. So it's overpriced, which causes the days on market.
Yep. So then list price to sales price is another factor or a function for buyers and sellers to pay attention to. So in Clearview, list price, so the house was listed at $1 million, for example, and it sold for 3% less. Yes? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that was about the same last year? Pretty much a wash?
Last year we were at 100.5. So they were getting list price.
So about a 3% drop.
Yeah.
Okay.
They might have added $1,000 to sweeten the deal.
Okay. Perfect. So not a big decline there, but
but if you're talking in Clearview specifically, where you have a median price of, let's say, 1.2, 3.5% is almost $40,000-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So when I priced the house we were talking about, we bumped up and got almost 5% because of correct pricing and in 4 days.
Because you understood the data, right? That's so key. So, okay, last data related, well, not last, second to last question. New listings versus solds year over year. So do we have more listings hitting the market or about the same?
So I specifically looked in the Snohomish Clearview area, and there were only 22 more homes sold last year in June compared to this year in June. So we have the lag. We don't know what July is.
Right.
July isn't finished yet.
Okay. So not too much has changed there.
No.
And to be quite frank, not too much has changed with interest rates year over year. We were right in the upper 6s last year at this time. We're right in the upper 6s this year at this time. So
it's interesting though, when I talk to real estate agents, and we're not necessarily talking to real estate agents now, but the psychology of the real estate agents, a lot of the ones I talked to thought business was way down last year.
Right.
My unit count went up.
Yeah.
But the price point was down. So it was like it was like this weird shift of I had more volume in unit sales, but not.
You have more volume this year, but more units last year?
Well, I mean, year to date.
Yeah.
Last year, when I was just looking at last year, my unit count was up, but the price point was lower than my normal. Yeah. So and
that was that big shock factor of probably leading up to last year was the 8% rates, was the fear that, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen to the economy with these rates and stuff.
Yeah. But like you said, there's 5Ds that make people move. There's always people transacting in real estate because they need to. So.
Well, and I tell you one thing that's probably working really great for you is your full-time realtor, your full-time real estate agent. So a lot of real estate agents dabble. Janet's been in this full-time for over 10 years. So, and then a full-time investor prior to that. So
for decades.
Yes. Now you mentioned, this is the last stat that I want to talk about. And this is important because I'm going to talk about what it takes to actually buy a home financially in this area. So you mentioned earlier that the median sales price in Clearview, I think you said was anywhere between 1.1 and 1.6. Was that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why we were talking about this off camera, so I might as well explain this to you. And you just mentioned earlier that this might not be for our audience because you talk to real estate agents. No, I want my audience of homeowners and home buyers to know what we are talking behind the scenes with other lenders and real estate agents about. Yeah, so that's really important. I appreciate you sharing that. But we were talking off camera about median versus average. I think when you look at Snohomish as a whole, median is important. I think when you look at Clearview, which is a small niche in Snohomish, we'll look at more so as average. In preparing for this podcast, there wasn't a ton of data to really help us get like an average. That's why we're going to use for Clearview. We're going to use kind of like low end 1.1. High-ish, higher end-ish, 1.6. Of course, you can go higher. You can buy a really nice custom home on acreage for in the 2 to 3 mark. But for the sake of this podcast, Clearview, sub neighborhood of Snohomish, right around 1.1, 1.6. So I used, as a mortgage lender, 1.3 for the sake of giving you some numbers. So clients ask me all the time, whether it be on social media or when I meet them, how much money do I need to make to buy a home in, for example, Clearview? So I will just go to what's the median sales price in Clearview. Well, we just established it's 1.3. So 1.3, that's considered a little higher end. So you're going to need a jumbo mortgage. Most of the time you're going to be putting 15 to 20% down. So I used 1.3 million with 20% down. That gets you right at the Snohomish County loan limits, Fannie Mae loan limits of $1,040,000. So $1,037,000.
Which didn't those just go up the last
year? They just
year
went up. Yeah. So right under $1,040,000, which is awesome.
Huge.
Yeah. So you could buy 1.3 with 20% down ish and still qualify for a conventional home loan. So if we did that, your total mortgage payment, plus I'm using an average of like $500 a month in residual debt, let's say credit card debt or an auto loan. So if I add up the total mortgage payment, property taxes, homeowner's insurance, a little bit of monthly debt, and reverse engineer to buy a $1.3 million home in Clearview with 20% down, you're looking at a total household income of about $19,000 a month, which equates to about $230,000 a year in gross income. So I always share this because I think it's important that, like, if you've listened to this podcast, you're like, yeah, Clearview's awesome. Love the fact that I'm right by Woodinville. I love the fact that I'm near downtown. I love the fact that I'm less than an hour away from the mountains, right? I'm less than an hour away or about an hour away from downtown Seattle. It's just an unbelievable area. What does it take to buy here? That's what it takes. Now, obviously, you can buy on the lower end and put less than 20% down. You can buy on the upper end and put 20% down or more. Things would change a little, but on average, about $230,000 a year total household income.
Interject that when we were talking about this earlier, you were just like doing this super fast. He figured that out in a minute and a half or less. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
I should be able to do that.
Yeah, I should.
It's my job. Well, it's
You're really
just,
good at it.
It's reverse engineering debt to income ratio and stuff like that. But I think it's important. I think it's being able to off the cuff advise people on that is pretty important. So I will go as far as saying in Snohomish County, though, the average down payment in Snohomish County as a whole right now in 2025 is not 20%, it's 7%. So this is all homeowners, first-time home buyers, first-time home buyers and move up or sideways move up, home buyers, 7% down. So not 20. That's a huge myth out there, guys. So there's certain price points that require you to put 20% down, but Snohomish County as a whole is about 7%. So let's wrap up this awesome episode with a couple of, these are good questions for you as a home buyer or a homeowner to know. Okay. So if someone were thinking about selling their home, could be in Clearview, could be anywhere. If they were thinking about selling in the next 6 months, what should they be doing right now to prepare?
I would say declutter, deferred maintenance, have your furnace serviced. You know, if you're going to sell in the next 6 months and you have a septic tank, get an inspection.
Right.
You know, do some of that deferred maintenance that you've been meaning to do that you just haven't done. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, because if and when an inspection comes, and most likely in this market it will, those are the things that are going to be the negotiating point.
That's so smart. So I have clients, I've been in mortgage finance for 19 years now. I have clients all the time that'll call me and say, hey, we're thinking about selling, want to know if we're approved or things have changed with our finances. What do you think we should start doing first? And I said, first off, let's start with getting you pre-approved to make sure you're good. We want you fully approved before you put a for sale sign in your yard. Number two, obviously we're going to set you up with your real estate agent, but I would suggest, like you just said, get a home inspection 6 months out before. I mean, right now, if you're thinking of selling in the next 6 months, go get a home inspection. Everything that home inspector is going to put on there is something that a buyer is going to get anyways, right? Number one. Number two, it's going to identify some of the deferred maintenance that you might need to address in advance. So, oh my gosh, where do I start? Well, we're going to patch up. No, get that home inspection. It tells you exactly what to do.
And also in the event that you have that inspection and you've done the punch list that the inspector suggested with the deferred maintenance, in the event that you hire me to be a real estate agent and we get a multiple offer situation, oftentimes that inspection and the fact that you've done all those punch list items will be adequate for people to then waive inspection on their end, which is just one less point of friction in a contract.
Keep the ball rolling. All right, so the next question, if you're a buyer, if you're thinking about buying in the next 6 months, what should you be doing right now to prepare for home ownership?
Talk to Dan Keller.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when people
financing
so when I have just an original consultation about buying, and I'm not doing the presentation of like what the process is, that's the first thing I ask them. Have you talked to a lender? Because a lot of times people want to buy and they actually don't think they can when they actually can. And home ownership is much closer than most people think it is. So I always say, talk to a lender. And then, you know, just kind of look at the locations. I love people to tell me what they really, really want, because I had a buyer, they wanted to live in Mukilteo. They had this very small budget, and I was thinking that's nearly impossible, but if anyone can do it, I can. And we did it, and it was a VA loan, and he did it with only $5,000 out of his pocket, and he moved into a condo in Mukilteo because he wanted to be right by Boeing. So, and he thought he was going to have to wait for a year, but he had a lender, he talked to the lender, and they said, oh no, yeah, we could do this. So, and it was a days on market, so the seller pitched in a ton of money. So, people are closer to home ownership than they think.
So that means get prepared early. You never know. The last thing we want to see is like, oh my gosh, this perfect house just hit the market and I don't have my ducks in a row. I haven't talked to an agent. I'm not pre-approved yet. And now you're scrambling and now you're making a potentially rash, quick decision when it could be planned out and educated. All right. Biggest mistakes you're seeing sellers make in today's market.
100% pricing.
Yep, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, 100%. It's if you price right, you win. If you don't, you don't.
Yep, great one. Okay, biggest mistakes you see buyers making in today's market.
I think delaying, because the cost to wait is actually greater than an interest rate they're not in love with.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. So I've not talked with anyone other than a couple of financial planners that they were not my financial planners. They were financial planners of clients. And I don't think that they were full-time, and I don't think that they were super knowledgeable or equipped, but they have advised their clients not to buy right now. I disagree with that. I think as a mortgage professional, I'm also a real estate investor. I take my job seriously. I get to work with first-time home buyers. That decision to buy or wait is a huge decision financially. If I give them the wrong advice, it's on me, right? I do not believe for 1 second with 1 ounce of my 235 pounds of being that you should wait to buy a home. You can, like you said earlier, you can always rework your mortgage. I do not believe for 1 minute that home values long-term are going to go down. I just don't believe it. The Puget Sound, the Pacific Northwest has very limited land. I know you guys are builders and developers and investors. It's so hard to find developable land right now. And the land that is developable has so many strings attached to it. And so because they're not making more of it, like Mr. Mark Twain said, it's only going to go up in value. So I believe, same thing that you just said, waiting. I have a report that I make for all my clients. It's called The Cost of Waiting, where I will show you. And it's really simple. We take data and we take buying right now, we take waiting, and we project out 5 years. And I use worst case scenario. I use over the last 40 years, we've seen a minimum of 7% appreciation in Snohomish County. So I'll take 4% appreciation. Let's say that it just stalls out for the next 5 years. You'll still come out on top. Okay. So I agree with you there. One last thing.
Well, and to be clear, if you're not buying, you're paying somebody's mortgage. Right. You're just not paying your own.
Right. Yeah. Amen. Okay. One last question. So relative to Snohomish or Snohomish County, I don't care. This is where I kind of just open it up. This is kind of like a free question, okay? Are are there any hot spots or hidden gems or areas that you are just 100% like sold on, like doubling down on right now that you love?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, personally, we've kind of doubled down on Highway 2 out by Snohomish River.
Yep.
We have a handful of properties, they're Airbnbs and that sort of thing. And really, it was about affordability and opportunity. But I'm getting ready to list a house in the Mount Baker area in Seattle, and it is just the loveliest little pocket, so right by Lake Washington. So I love dirt. I don't care where it's at. And I'm always looking for opportunities for myself and for my clients, because I love helping people build wealth through real estate. It is my passion. Yeah. And so when you say, is there one spot, urban sprawl, things are more affordable as you get out a little further, but there's a lot of opportunity in doing that. And just like Clearview felt like the end of the world 25 years ago. Right. It is now $1.6 million homes.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So I love that you got the perspective today from a real estate investor, someone that has spent 20 plus years investing in real estate, building real estate, right? I'll close with this. About a month and a half ago, I got to be a part of an investors seminar, real estate investors seminar downtown Seattle. It was pretty expensive to get in. I got in free because they actually asked me to speak. And I was just like, oh, I'm going to come and speak at this. And I get my 5 minutes to talk about financing investment homes and DADUs and all this stuff. You guys, I left like 5 of the speakers. 2 of them owned over 200 homes. And now they're at the point where it's apartments and big projects now. Not one of them said anything bad about the real estate market, that it was going to go down in value. And these are people that make full-time livings and good livings off of investing in real estate. There was another gentleman there that had created some AI technology for real estate investors that showed hot spots all over the country to buy in. And a lot of that's based off of affordability, but it's also based off of metrics. And I'll tell you what, this is a great time to buy real estate. So if real estate investors who make their living, and these are professional real estate investors that make their living off of investing in real estate, they're doubling down right now, well then I think that's good enough for my first time home buyers, and that's good enough for me. So I really appreciate your time today, Janet. It's always a joy getting to work with you and to talk with you. Any parting thoughts?
It is never a bad time to buy a good piece of real estate. Yeah. Okay. And thank you for the opportunity. This is fun.
No, this is fun. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Stay tuned for more episodes just like this with people, amazing pros like Janet. We'll see you next time on the Happy Homeowner Podcast. Bye for now.